Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Barrett Louie, and I'm part of the marketing team here at RiskIQ. We're excited you were able to join us for today's workshop. Today, we'll be diving into threat hunting concepts and techniques using passive total. Before we get started, there are a couple housekeeping notes. First, today's workshop is being recorded. Second, today's session will be interactive. If you have questions, please send them through the questions window in the GoToWebinar control panel. The team will answer questions as we go. Now, let me introduce you to today's presenter, Viral Maniar, who is our Apac Solutions Architect. In addition, we have Kevin Tang and Hans Barre here to help answer any questions you may have throughout the session. Now that you've met the team, I'll hand it over to Viral.
Thanks, Barrett. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And this is our very first workshop for the year 2021 in the APAC region, as well as this is the first time I'm conducting this virtual workshop for the RiskIQ. So I hope everyone on the call had a great start of the year. And I'm really excited about today's threat hunting workshop. I hope each of you will learn something new with this workshop. With me on the call, I have Hans Barre, who is our technical director for the APAC region, and Kevin Tang, who is a solutions architect, helping our customers in the APJ region. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask them in the chat section, and they will be able to answer them. So Hans, Kevin, and everybody on the line, please feel free to unmute yourself in case we are missing some information or would like to provide additional resources to the people on the call so that they get the most out of the session, right? Lastly, this workshop will last for 2 hours and it will be recorded, as Barrett mentioned. There'll be no breaks. So before we start, feel free to use the restroom or grab a cup of coffee or tea, right? One of the things I wanted to mention is that when you register an account with RiskIQ, we have several different types of accounts. I'll explain the differences between each of these accounts that is right for you and your organization, right? If you use a free email account, such as Gmail or a Yahoo, you will fall under our community account. And then with this, we limit some of the information you can see and do, because as an attacker, it is easy to get the free account, right? Anyone can go and register for a Gmail account or a Yahoo account on the internet. So we do not want to share all the information that can be seen using our platform. So, we have on the particular set exposed to the internet, right? So for example, we don't provide access to the services tab in the passive total, which limits your view to what services are open, closed, or filtered on different ports. Also, you won't be able to see the banner information. We also limit the number of days that you can see the information. You can see only recent information for the past 14 days. Same goes for the whois records. You only get to see the current record. However, we might have a record on that particular asset for the past 10+ years, right? However, if you use a corporate email account, then we provide 90 days of history on these records, right? And it will give you access to the services tab. Then you'll be able to see banners and ports information. And if you have a trial account or an enterprise account, then you have access to everything, right? For the 30 days. And same goes for the enterprise users. They get to do unlimited queries, and then they can see all the data. But you may ask, like, how do I get the enterprise trial version, right? If you want to look at our portal. So you'll see that on every single page or on the slide, right? There is a promo code here. So you can use that with your free account or a corporate email account. So I recommend that if you are not in the trial or you don't have the paid account, then you are going to run out of the queries, right? When we are going to show some of the live stuff which is out there in terms of bad infrastructure, right? So when you think about it, right? If I have the free email account and I do search, I might see a little bit. So I might see a domain. I see a current whois record, and then maybe some OSINT information, right? However, if I use the same query and I use the corporate email account, that's free. I might see the services, right? I might see some malware associated with the query, and some additional information to get the bigger picture. However, if you use the enterprise account, you'll be able to see the different RiskIQ data sets, right? That are advanced and derived to really get the full picture of everything that's out there. So the same query with 3 different accounts might see different amounts of information, which will then link to a bigger infrastructure chain to be able to show you the full picture. So based on your requirement, you can either go with the individual account or an enterprise account. So when we look at the data sets, right, that a lot of you might be aware of, such as whois or PDNS, SSL certificate, which is really a derived data sets that we give it to the community for free. However, you can't rely much on the whois records these days because of the GDPR, and then attackers are getting smarter where they are buying privacy protection on their when registering a malicious domain or a typo squatted domain. So it is difficult to find information and then link it to an individual, right? Same thing for the fields in the SSL certificates, right? Attacker can use same or similar names when they are targeting your organization, but by generating these SSL certificates. So we give that to everybody, right? So those data sets are available in the community to the community users. But to understand and link the infrastructure, we need advanced data sets such as trackers or maybe Hostpaths. Those things would require you to have an enterprise account or a trial enterprise account, right? And then of course we have web components as well, which comes with which shows you the different types of softwares which is being utilized on that particular assets exposed to the internet. So if we do the breakdown of these data sets, right, the enterprise trials or an enterprise account have access to everything. And what I mean by everything is going back to the time since when we started collecting all the different information on the internet, right? So that means everything, right? For the past 11 plus years. So these promo codes will help you if you are not in the trial, and then you'll be put into like a 30-day trial period and then play with our platform. So if you sign up with the corporate email account, then the other benefit is that other people in your organization who are already part of the enterprise account, right? You'll be able to share information with them a lot easier through something called projects, right? So supposingly during this threat hunting workshop, if you try to discover something new related to your organization, you can put those IOCs into the project and then share it with the broader team. So if you don't have an account, right? If you don't have an account, then you can actually go to the link, which is community.riskiq.com/registration, and then get yourself an account, right? And then once you register for an account, you can actually put the promo code, which is VTHW _0128. Make sure that you enter it the way it looks on the screen right now, because this is case sensitive, right? Once you do this, you will receive an email. You need to verify your email account, and then you can use the account, and then you'll have trial period. You'll be under the trial period for 30 days. So if you already have an account with us, then if you would like to add the promo code, you can actually go into and click into the profile icon on the top right, and then go to the account settings, click on the account settings, and then click on the profile button on the left, right? And you will see the promo code field like this here, right? Right now this is blank, but if you can click on this pencil icon, you can add the promo code, which is VTHW_0128, and then click on save, and then that's it. You'll have a lot of queries via UI as well as the API token, right? One thing you can do here is you can actually set up email notification to yes or no based on your preference, and then you can see like how often you want to receive the threat intelligence related articles that we publish on our portal, right? For the cadence purposes. So you can either go for daily, weekly, or monthly basis here. So that's what you can change it as well. Okay, so moving further, what all tools we are going to use for this threat hunting workshop? All right. Of course, we are going to rely on passive total to hunt for bad infrastructure out there. But on top of it, we are going to use something like Google Safe browsing checks. Maybe we are going to throw a particular bad infrastructure into URL scan.io and see if it is loading any malicious scripts. Yeah, we might even go and look for those URLs on hybrid analysis, or maybe on any run software, right? So all these tools are going to help you do the investigations, right? And then find the threat, and that the things which you are going to find, it's going to help you protect yourself and your organization. But before we jump into this kind of stuff, I wanted to give you a quick warning that what we are going to cover is live infrastructure, and real bad actors are utilizing them on multiple domains. It's not in the lab environment, or we haven't come up with these domain names on our own, or it's not a controlled environment. So it's on the internet, and with that, we wanted to protect you by putting some sort of a sandbox environment, right? So by putting a sandbox environment between you and the threat actors, what happens is RiskIQ collects all the information and provides you the snapshot through passive total, right? So that you don't have to make active connections to that bad infrastructure. That way there is you are in a sandbox environment. So right. And then this sandbox environment is again, like if you are making active connections with these websites directly, maybe an attacker is going to see the connections coming to that website, and they are going to block this, right? So yeah, just wanted to give you that warning that if you are using our passive total portal, you'll be in some sort of sandbox environment where you are not making direct connections, but relying on what we have collected, and then you are looking at these snapshots, right? So let me give you a quick background on myself. I'm Viral Maniar, working for RiskIQ as a solutions architect for the Apac region for the past 1 year now. I'm really passionate about various domains in cybersecurity space. I've been working and doing offensive and defensive security for the past 9+ years now. I've been working with customers in different service lines, such as government, financial services, education, and manufacturing, to name a few. I've written some offensive tools and have presented at a number of security conferences, such as Black Hat, DEF CON, and then RootCon in Philippines. Other than InfoSec, I like photography. And here are some clicks, which is captured using my DSLR, right? Feel free to reach out to me via my Twitter handle, or maybe drop me an email on viralmaniar@riskiq.net if you'd like to have a chat about everything in the cyber. So Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that we have created this resource page. So if you go to www.riskiq.com/threat-hunting-resources, you are going to see a lot of exercises, right? And these exercises covers number of scenarios and provide you step-by-step guide on how to perform an investigation using RiskIQ passive total, right? So this is not been crawled by Google Docs, so you are not going to find it. So please take a note of this URL, and then when you have a free time, go through these exercises, and then you are going to learn a lot of scenarios, and then you are going to get a hands-on experience on how you can do threat investigation and stuff like that. Okay, so with that, Barrett, if you can pull some poll questions to understand the audience here today, that would be great. Thank you. So the first question we have is, what area of the organization do you work for? So do you work for incident response team, vulnerability management team, SOC team? Questions like this can help us understand and cater our future threat hunting workshops in a better way, right? Now we'll see the poll results here. Oh wow! So we have got some people from vulnerability management team, but most of them are threat analysts. Yeah, I'm glad that you are here. I think you are going to like this, and then you are going to learn something new. We'll have the next question, please. Okay, do you currently use passive total? Yes or no? Nice. 59% of you are using passive total, and those of you are not, this is the time. Go register an account and then put that promo code in so that you're to learn new stuff. So the thing which we are going to cover today is Magecart. So are you familiar with Magecart? Yes or no? Oh, nice. 61% of the people on the call, they don't know what Magecart is. Basically, Magecart is nothing but it is a way using which attackers target the online shopping cart systems, and then they steal customer payment card information, or they do credential harvesting. And with this, usually they target third-party pieces hosted on the e-commerce sites. And then usually the product they target is Magento, right? So you are going to love this. Okay. I think with that, that's the end of the poll questions, and we are going to go ahead. Okay, so let me give you some background on how RiskIQ collects all the information, right? So to the people who are new here, right, you'll find it fascinating that there are so many data on the internet, and we browse the entire IPv4 range like a real user, right? So from a client perspective, and not from the backend perspective, sorry. So we do not install any agents when providing the collected information to our end users. All of our product requires browser, and that's it, right? So for collection, we go out there and visit everything that is accessible on the internet. We perform like more than 2 billion crawls a day. We also scan like 220 plus different ports to collect banner information and services which they are running. We perform these crawls from over 150 countries, over 150 different countries over the VPN, right? So we come out from commercial, residential, and corporate IP space. Then we imitate all the popular browser vendors and devices. But you may ask, like, why do we need to do all of this, right? When you are just simply crawling the internet. Well, the answer to that is, like, if we come out from our own data center, right, or maybe from a specific IP range or an ASN, right, the attackers can do the reconnaissance on us, and then they can see that, you know, we are always crawling and scraping the internet from the same IP range. So what they can do is they can host a malicious website, and then they can filter the traffic, and in that case we won't be able to see anything, right? And if we can't see anything, then we won't be able to provide you that insight into the malicious stuff. And that's why we need to, you know, come from different IP ranges over the VPN, and we emulate different you know, browsers and devices, right? So now that you can understand, like, why those things are important when you are collecting different stuff from the internet, right? So when we crawl this you know, sites on the internet, we act like a naive user. And the classic example you all might have seen, right? Like, you know, when you are on a particular site, sometimes you get a pop-up saying that get a free iPhone, right? I mean, and we are like, oh wow, that's great. Like, am I going to get a free iPhone? Yes, I'm going to click on that link, right? So we click on all this different ads, and then whether it's malicious buttons or you know, so that we can load all the scripts, you know, to crawl this malicious sites, right? And then we render all the cookies, we capture all the session values. Furthermore, we browse from the headless browsers as well, right? I forgot to tell you that. So we crawl the same site from different session as well, so that you know, we can compare what all different cookies they are loading, what all different tracker information it's getting loaded. So when collecting this information, right, we pull down every minor details on the particular page, right? We collect the full DOM, headers, any dependent request we have seen, and we are doing this on all the sites in the world, right? So that we give you the good picture of the internet and how things are, so that you don't have to browse to the actual malicious sites, right? And hence, when we do the correlation, you know, using data science to build the map of the internet, right? So once we do this type of correlation, we can build the map, and then show you everything in terms of how it is interconnected. So if I start from one little piece of information, you can see everything connected to it, right? So that you can get a bigger picture. We do billions of HTTP requests in a day, right? And we have seen terabytes of passive DNS records, right? We have services that are running to see what ports are open, and we keep timestamps of when a particular asset was first brought to the internet, when it was last seen. All this information can help you do the investigation in the case of a breach, right? So we can tell you when exactly the malicious script was injected on a particular site, right? If you wanted to do some investigation. Also, we can see that the day you clean these scripts as well, right? So of course, you know, once the site is going to get targeted by an attackers, right? And as a threat analyst, you would do some investigation, and then you know, most of the investigations are the aftermath, right, scenarios. And we can exactly tell you that if it's cleaned, or has attackers put any other malicious JavaScript scripts which you need to clean, you know. So and same thing goes for port or banner information. We can give you timestamps for everything, right? Right. So with all the above stuff, right? If I wanted to do an investigation, I can start with a single piece of malware, and then I can tell you that malware had a particular IP address, or maybe it had certain domain name associated to it, which was utilized as a C2 channels, or if the attackers changes their infrastructure by rotating the hosting provider, or maybe changing the C2 channels, right? I can start building out this infrastructure chain for a particular attack, right? Or a threat actor group, right? If I wanted to keep track of certain threat actor groups, and take proactive steps, right, to prevent your organization from the malicious attacks. If right, like, I mean, I can pull different layers, right? Like, first layer is maybe it's the malware is associated to an IP address. The second layer could be that IP address is associated to XYZ domain, right? And then layer 3 could be that domain is associated with some sort of an email server and stuff like that. So I can build those layers and then track the bad infrastructure of these attackers, right? Recently we have come up with this thing called threat intelligence dashboard, right? And where we publish different articles, right? And then these articles will have different indicator of compromises, IOCs, and where you can see the additional infrastructure tied to a particular attack vector, right? So of course, if you are reading an article which have certain IOCs in it, right? What we can do is, we can take those articles and then we can provide you additional indicators, right? Associated to the same attack vector. We call it enterprise indicators, right? And these indicators can actually save a lot of cost and time when you are doing this types of investigation. You can straight away take those indicators, enterprise indicators, and then put it in at your gateway, so that you can stop those phishing emails coming in to you, right? So that's kind of doing some sort of a proactive hunting, right? So this is the example I'm showing you here, right? Where I have this particular blog, and then this blog is having certain IOCs, and then these are the different community as well as the enterprise indicators, right? So if you are using the community version of RiskIQ, right, your view might be this. But if you have the paid version of the passive total, you get a lot bigger view of this indicator of compromises, right? And you can get a lot better picture on what the attacker's infrastructure is. So with this, we are trying to make this information more relevant and actionable to you and your teammates, so that you can save time and you can go faster and smarter on this suspicious assets, right? And yes, this is the same information, but I'm showing you, through the graphics, right? So when we look back at the historic data, right, we have like the map of everything, right? As you can see here, we have all this interconnected systems, and then we can tell you how the internet was looking on that particular day, and then we can go back in time and figure that out. Was I am I vulnerable to certain types of attacks? Are threat actors building infrastructure to target my organization? Stuff like that you can easily see, right? And then you can looking at those looking at this map, right? Like you can see how things are changing for you on the internet as well, right? So so when this data comes to us, right, we have all these different pieces of information, such as phishing sites, some JavaScripts associated to those sites, cookie values, OSINT information, SSL certificates, who is records, banners. There's so much of information, right? So with this, approximately, when we are collecting this massive, internet data, right? We see close to 250K new domain resolutions on a daily basis, right? We see billions of unique DNS records, 300,000 new ports changing the statuses from close to open or open to close, or maybe it is getting filtered. We also have the largest mobile application repositories in the world, right? So we keep an eye on all these mobile applications as well, where we have over 300 plus unique mobile stores, which has over like 34 million mobile applications. If it's in targeting Android, iOS devices, etc. Right? So as this data comes in, right, you can see with this diagram on the left. So this data comes in. Our team of data scientists, along with machine learning, performs some serious research, right? So when you query certain things, it pulls the data out quickly to provide you that particular information, right? So once we collect this information, it becomes our own data sets, right? And once it becomes our own data set, then we can do the classification on these data sets, right? Such as, this particular range of IP address is always generating malicious traffic. So maybe we can classify them as, blacklisted IP address range, right? Or maybe we have seen this particular domain names, right? They are always targeting different organizations through targeted phishing attacks. So maybe we can classify that data sets from the internet into our derived data sets called phishing list, right? So stuff like this, right? And once we classify something as malicious or bad, like Google and Microsoft would take our data set and then they would put those data set into production in about 10 to 15 minutes. So supposingly, if you and you might have realized this, right, on your own. So if you go to this malicious domain, which is infringing on your organization name, then 95% of the time you'll see that red alert screen, basically, that a particular site is doing a malicious things, right? And then it takes a couple of days for us to take down that bad site. We have an MIS team. Which work on 24/7, which works on 24/7 cycle, and then they take down all this malicious infrastructure on a daily basis, right? All right. So I have been talking a lot, but then after looking at all this thing, right, like our platform can answer some of the common questions which you might have, right? And then these questions get raised all the time in the SOC or during the investigation, such as what is my security posture, right? Is some attack going on right now on my assets which are exposed to the internet? Like, what could have happened, right, if in case there is a breach? What security controls I have in place, right? Or maybe if I'm modeling some security controls, what would happen, right? How my web applications on the internet are going to behave, right? And same thing goes for the security monitoring and security investigations, right? So these are the types of concerns or questions can be answered through our platform. So when you think about the cyber kill chain, right? Most organizations put their time and effort from the firewall in end, right? That's nothing but their I would say internal perimeter, because that's what they can see and control, right? So if I ask you a question like do you know the internal perimeter? Most of the organization know yes. They answer yes to this question, right? And they put a lot of controls to protect themselves, protect the internal network. right? And of course, this is a great thing. You should definitely need to put those controls in place. But what RiskIQ does is we focus outside of the firewall. So when you are looking for a deep dark web discussions, or maybe some credential leakages on the paste sites, all of those things we know about it already, right? For your organization. So when people are doing the reconnaissance on your organization, or maybe they are probing your systems, right? To find the vulnerabilities exposed on your external facing assets, right? Or maybe setting up a phishing site against your organization. That's usually the start of an attack, right? I would say that's usually what attackers does, and all of those things are outside of your firewall, right? It's on the internet. So as an attacker, I would go and buy a typo squatted domain that looks very much like your organization name. Then I would go ahead and start building the phishing sites on those domains, and then I would make that particular domain email capable, and stuff like this, right? Attackers are doing this kind of stuff all the time, right? So when an attacker associates an email server to the domain, that's when I think the problem starts beginning, right? Because that's where the attacker is trying to send your internal employees or your customers a phishing email, and then that's how they wanted to do the credential harvesting, or they are trying to break into your organization from the external perimeter, right? So when you look at the timeline of this kind of attacks, right, where it actually affects you and your customer is everything is outside of the firewall, right? We can actually show you what's happening, and then since we are crawling the internet, right, we can stop this kind of things in usually 1 or 4 days before it becomes active on the internet. And that's going to take a lot less cost when it comes to remediation of this bad thing, and it's a lot less risk to your organization as well, right? So that's how you can take the proactive security approach when you wanted to target a particular threat actor or a group, right? And of course, we can and we do this crawling on a daily basis, right? So we do the continuous monitoring on those bad infrastructure. So if there are any further changes going on, or I've seen some cases where a fish site goes up for a certain period of time, and then it goes back down again, and then up at certain period of the day, or maybe a week, it's up. It's going to keep the fish page live, and then they're going to take that page down, right? Since they do not want their infrastructure to be burned by all the different threat analysts. So and we can do do this kind of processes on a daily basis, and then we can help you quickly take down their infrastructure, right? Maybe in few hours time, or maybe in few days time, right? So like we use internet, right? Attacker uses the internet as well, right? They can't avoid the internet if they are planning an attack against your organization. So we all emit signals, and I'll show you what these different types of signals are, right? When we are crawling things, we are capturing this and gathering these signals, right? Which is getting emitted by good users or as well as the bad users, right? And then we link them together, have the metadata about them, and then be able to show you this parent-child relationship, and then you can see how these things are interconnected, so that you can take actions on this bad infrastructure, right? So I'll quickly show you the scenario here. So we have this threat actor, right? This threat actor could be in Brazil, and then we have a victim here who is getting targeted, right, in Canada. So both of these users are connected to the internet, right? When these attacks are going to happen, right? So when the threat actor first connected to the internet, right, they emitted a signal, right? And these signals could be like an IP address or a network block, and then these network blocks should be hosted on certain ASN, and this ASN should have some certain IP ISPs, right? And then when an attacker is trying to draft a phishing email for this targeted user, right? Sorry, they need to have some sort of an email provider, right? Email subject line could be a signal as well. Email body, attachment, headers, date and timestamps. All these things are really helpful and important when you are doing an investigation, right? And then once an attacker sends this email, right? What happens is, this gets transited through multiple systems, right? So we have another signal, which is, transit IP addresses, transit network blocks, times when these things are happening, and autonomous systems for these transit systems. And again, when this email is received by the victim, attacker gets certain signals as well. Like these signals could be read notification, right? So if supposingly, this threat actors, they can draft an HTML email in the HTML body in the email, right? And they can hide like 1 pixel by 1 pixel image in it, and then as soon as a victim opens the email, right, they will receive a read notification. They can actually capture the location from where the targeted users are opening the emails, right? So all these things are super important, right? When you are collecting things from the internet, right? And of course, these signals are important, and it is available to everyone, right? But this is important. Like if you are capturing this information, then you can take some meaningful steps and actionable steps, right? And also you can do this internally too, right, within your network. I'm not sure how many organizations are doing this kind of stuff, but yeah, it is extremely useful, and I highly recommend that you capture all these logs, and understand what's going on in your environment, external as well as internal. So with Passive Total, we have integrations in place, like with Microsoft, Splunk, CrowdStrike, and various other vendors, right? Where we take that inside information and our outside information, right? And then we find something bad, and then we send you this notification so that you have a full picture on the attack, and then you can improve your detection capabilities, right? Hey, Barrett, I've been talking for a while. Do we have any questions that need to be answered or anything like that, Barrett?
Hey, Varel. Yeah, we got a question about the crawling that you were talking about. When you crawl, do you get blocked by WAFs?
Oh, that's an amazing question. Yeah. So usually what happens is, since we are coming from this different locations, and our crawlers are act like a human, right? So it acts like a real user. So it comes from different locations, different browsers, different mobile IP addresses, right? Like so. When we are crawling and scraping things, our crawlers doesn't get blocked by WAFs. Does that answer the questions? Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
Is there any other question?
Let's see. Oh, we had a question about the ports that are scanned. Let me pull it up here. What ports are scanned by RiskIQ, and how often do you perform the scanning?
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to ports, right, like we scan over 220 plus different ports, and then these are the ports which we think, which could be hosting some sensitive services, right? To give you an example, right, a port 8080, usually there are like Jenkins servers, right, or Apache servers. Like we scan all those ports, right, and then on a daily basis, right, and then once we scan these ports, right, what we do is like we index them and then bring it to your view, the current status of the ports, right, and we along with that we give you the historical data as well, when that particular port was first exposed to the internet, when it was closed, and then how many times we have done the scanning on that particular asset. We provide you all that information in the services tab with our enterprise accounts.
Perfect. Thanks. And I think we're all set for now.
Oh, awesome. If there are no questions, I'll go ahead. Thank you. Okay. So when we are collecting all this information, right, there are certain caveats which we need to be aware of, right? So if you find something, right, that doesn't mean it's bad all the time, right? However, if you find number of things or I should say solid analytical lead, right, which helps you connect the dots, then you can confirm that it is malicious behavior, right? So in short, as an analyst, you would need multiple points of proof, and the investigations are often dynamic in nature, right? Because attackers tend to change their infrastructure quickly to avoid detections. So for example, if you see a typo-quoted domain alone, right, that by in itself is not a bad thing, right? It's because it's not illegal to buy a typo-quoted domain, right? That's not a solid evidence of a bad thing, right? However, if you see a company logo and then it becomes email capable, like that's when you can start thinking about it, like, oh yes, this is definitely doing malicious, right? Why is my company logo suddenly appears on this typo-quoted domain, right? So that's how you can figure it out, the bad infrastructure, right? And then that's what we are going to look in the later part of the workshop, right? Like how you can have this multiple points of proof to tell you that that particular site is doing malicious stuff, right? So we are going to look at various TTPs, for a particular Magecart group, and what kind of things they use when they are planning an attack against an organization. So in the next few slides, what I'm going to talk about is how one can plan an attack and then exploit this systems out there, right? So this is going to be a technical discussion on Magecart. Yeah, if you have questions or anything, please feel free to drop those questions in the chat section, and my colleagues would be able to answer them, right? Right, like so when we are thinking from an attack perspective, right? So we have to understand the attack chain first, right? For an attacker, they need to have some sort of a target, right? And this target needs to be exploited somehow, right? Either through a vulnerability or maybe through a 0-day. And then once an attacker exploits these systems, they need to execute certain code. And then when they execute certain code on your legit infrastructure, what they can do is they can harvest credentials, or they can do the browser hooking, or maybe maybe they can do credit card skimming, right? So all these things are related to Magecart attack, right? And that's what we are going to see, right? So let's understand this at a high level, right? So it's I hope it's clear that it has various stages, right? Target, exploit, execute, and then of course lastly collecting things, right? This could be like credentials or credit card information, right? With the Magecart, however, these attackers, they were targeting the Magento sites, right? And then Magento is an e-commerce platform, right? Using which you can build sites, right? So what happened is that they started exploiting this old version of Magento 1.x, and then someone was leaking this exploit for $5,000 on the dark forum sites, and this various thread group purchased this exploit, and then they started injecting malicious scripts into various e-commerce sites, right, to harvest credit card data, or collecting PII related stuff, or maybe credentials, right? So that's what we are going to talk about, right? So and on the left, what I'm showing you here is what's in a browser thread, right? So that's an infographic released by our research team, which is really interesting, right? So if you think about it, right, like browser is becoming one of the most frequently used attack vectors for criminals, right? The reason is mostly 70% of people, right, when they open their computer, that's the first program they use, right? However, the browser attacks comes in many different forms, right? Magecart is one of them. The other methods to attack browsers are cryptocurrency miners, right? Or maybe fingerprinters, or someone can do a water holding attacks. There are so many different types of attacks on the browser itself, right? But then attackers rely on to perform this type of attacks, right? Like attackers have to do one thing, which is injecting malicious scripts into your browser when you are loading a site, right? So at RiskIQ, we profiled and analyzed most common injection techniques, which is observed in our telemetry data, and what makes them fascinating pieces of threat infrastructure, right? That's what this infographic is about. So I highly recommend that you actually go to this link, infographic link, and then browse stuff there, right? And then have a read through, and then see if you can learn new stuff. All right. So what we are going to talk about is Magecart Group 12, right? Back in January 2019, our research team did a great analysis, where this group targeted a number of advertising companies. And you may ask, like, why advertising companies, right? Like, what's the benefit of targeting like advertising company? What am I going to get out of it, right? But it's important, right? Like the reason for targeting advertising companies is obvious. Like, as many sites generate revenues by displaying ads, right? And ads are common on e-commerce sites. So this group utilizes two-stage schemas, right? Be with me on this, right? Like this is a little complicated, but yeah, hopefully I'll be able to explain this. So this is a two-stage schemer, right? The first stage is a loader script, right? That was put on the page, right? As you can see on the right, like they encoded this loader script using hex encoding, right? Which can be decoded easily. It's not hard to decode hex encoding, right? So there are various tools out there which can help you decode this kind of stuff, right? So when attackers tries to target someone and exploit it, right, they have to put this malicious script on the website itself, or pull in this type of script from external scripts and run it locally in the browser, right? So we got this thing by capturing the full document object modeling on various sites, right? And then we did an analysis on these sites to see if there is anything malicious, right? So the snippet on the right, shows the encoded loader script, and then this loader script is from the Edwin. Like, if you can see the script and then domain name here. They're targeting ads2.adverline.com, and this is a company in France, right? Who is doing massive advertising on various e-commerce platform, right? So when you decode it, right, what you are going to see is the next part of the attack, right? Uh, so we already looked at the loader script. So let's deep dive into the different stages, right? So for stage one, right, it is doing a fingerprinting on the browser. And what do I mean by fingerprinting is basically what type of browser the end user is using. Are they using Chrome or Firefox or maybe Internet Explorer? They're doing some enumeration on what's the window size, right? Is there anything in the console logs, right? Can we take advantage of the session cookie values, right, from the console logs? Are things getting logged in these console logs, right? So attackers wanted to know basically the reason why they are doing this kind of checks in the stage one of the attack is because they are checking if someone is doing an analysis of this malicious script, right? Or are you running this kind of scripts or loading the sites in the test environment or a sandbox environment, right? So this is what group 12 was doing, and they were checking all these things to hide themselves, basically, right? Basically, if you are doing an analysis through developer tools in your browser, right, things are not going to load properly, right? And in some instances, what we have seen is like they clear the console logs every few seconds, so that even if you are doing an analysis, you're not going to see those things getting logged, right? And basically this is going to help them fly under the radar of an analyst, right? So that they are not going to get detected, right? So this is the stage one. Once they load the once we have a loader in place, in stage one they do this kind of checks, right? So in stage two, the techniques and tactics they were using to fly under the radar or maybe to do the anti-analysis mechanism in place, right? So instead of running the whole code, what they were doing is they were calling the next phase of the code, in snippets. So what do I mean by that is basically they were looking for the URLs in the browser, and then they will look for things such as if there is a keyword like a cart, that's what I'm showing you here, right? You can see there are certain keywords in the stage two of the JavaScript, right? There are keywords like cart or store and stuff like that, right? And based on that, they will run the small snippet to perform the logging of the sensitive information, right? When they were doing this kind of logging of this information, what they were doing is they were sending this kind of data back to their server using base64 encoding mechanism using post request, right? And that's how they can harvest this kind of information. On the right, these two screenshots, right, is showing you the obfuscated response, right? And the bottom screenshot, basically what it is doing is doing some sort of integrity checks on the exfiltrated data. So these integrity checks are like MD5 hash or SHA-1 hash to make sure that they receive the right data and not and this data is not modified in the transit, right? So you can click on that link to read more about our research and understand this kind of attacks in a lot more detail. But yeah, I mean, with the limited time we have here, right? We can't go like in super detail, but you can of course click on that link and then read about it. Moving further, right? There are other things which we did research on recently, and we call it ant and cockroaches Magecart, right? So full details are available on this link. This itself. So I'm not going to cover the details here, but some of the techniques I covered just now, right? They are same in terms of anti-analysis and integrity checks. So feel free to read this in your free time and understand various schemas and techniques they use. And this is extremely useful in current times, right? Like as you know, because of the lockdown, people are buying everything online, from groceries to gadgets, right? But I want to make sure that I at least provide some IOCs here so that you can hunt for this kind of threats on your own. Right. So I think now that we have covered the technical details of the Magecart here, right? What I can do is I can actually go back to the portal itself and show you some of the information on how you can find this kind of stuff or bad infrastructure on your own, right? So just give me a second. I'm going to find the right yep, I'm going to find the right screen. Yep. Okay. So all right, so this is the passive total portal, right? So, and if you wanted to do some analysis and then threat hunting for your organization using Magecart, right? How you can do that, right? So when you're going to log into the portal, this is what you are going to see, right? And you can come here and then search for different attack vectors, or maybe you can search for different threat actor groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for Magecart, right? And when I search that, it's going to show me all the different results related to Magecart. Here are some open source intelligence related, threat intelligence related articles, some IOCs, how many indicators we have on that particular in that particular indicators. You can come here and download those indicators, and then this indicators are going to be like a CSV format or an Excel file. You can share it with your teammates and stuff like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click to this and I'm going to open it in the new tab here, or maybe you can just click on this link itself to pivot and then look at this thing in detail, right? But I'm going to open it in the new tab so that we keep things consistent. Okay, so now we know that this is the article. It's going to give you the description about what this article is about. It's going to give you some brief information on the intelligence on how things how things we have seen on our portal, right? This is how it looks like when we are crawling things, right? And then there's a lot of information here, right? So you can read through and then rely on this different IOCs, right? But what I would do is, right, and we also give you a link to from where we have identified this post, right? So if you click on this, you can see that we have pulled this information from Sensec, right? And that's what we have seen it here, right? So we give credit to the finders as well, right? So I'm going to close this. And then what I have here is, I have all the different IOCs, right? And these IOCs are extremely useful, right? Related to Magecart, right? So when you see certain IOCs, these are the domains used for doing the Magecart attack. Here are different IP addresses. Here are the phone numbers used, and then you can pivot from this different IOCs, right? So I'm going to pivot from one of these domain names here. You can directly click again. You can pivot by clicking on this particular indicator, or you can open it in the new tab, right? So when I right click and open it in the new tab, right, this is the interface. And I will walk through the interface quickly here so that you will understand what all things we need to be aware of, right, from the UI perspective. So, and then we will see who is running the malicious script from this bad infrastructure side, right? So the top part here, this part, is the Analyst Insight. These are some common questions during the investigation an analyst might think about, right? And we give you those answers right away. Questions like, is this a new infrastructure? If this infrastructure was blacklisted, right? How often we are crawling this bad sites, right? Are there any new subdomain on that particular bad infrastructure, right? If this particular infrastructure going up and down, or resolving to different IP addresses in short timestamps, right? All those information can be answered using Analyst Insights. So below this, we have heat map, right? And then this heat map is of the last 6 months of time, and the number that are associated are the number of unique IP addresses we saw on that particular day, right? So this is the PDNS information, right? Like. And if I highlight over these squares, like I see the resolutions. Now, if you see, you might have noticed this different curves as well, right? Like there is a curve on the bottom of this some of these squares, and there is curve on the top of these squares, right? So what this indicate is the start of the month, and this is the end of the month, right? You can also, what you can do is, if you are interested in certain time period, what you can do is you can hold your shift key, and then you can select the start time, and then you can select the end time as well, and then based on this selection, it's going to slice and dice the data here, and it's going to show you the resolution, and this different tabs is going to get adjusted based on this selection, right? So you can do that as well, right? And then that's very helpful when you are doing some sort of an investigation. Below this heat map, we have something called a data bar, right? And this shows all the information we have collected on that particular asset, right? So you can go back in time. So this is the this bad infrastructure, we saw it in like 2010, and then since then it is resolving. There was this time there was a gap, maybe this infrastructure was down, and then then it comes back again with the new infrastructure, right? So this is the time when attacker was changing the infrastructure. So if you look at here, if you see the unique resolution here, right? So this was getting resolved to that particular IP address, 91.205.184.10, and then it was down for like a month. And then if you see here in the end of March, right, what you will see is they are back again with the new infrastructure, which is hosted on a new IP address, 178.63.16.87, right? And that's what this little orange triangle is indicating, right? So if you wanted to see the gaps here, right, if you click on it, you'll see the under triangle, right? And then that's when the infrastructure was rotated again, and then again, right? Now you see it was resolving to one IP address, and now suddenly you see that the same domain was hosted on 2 different IP addresses, right? And stuff like that. It's so easy to visualize these things and find an attack vector, right? to see if that particular site was doing a malicious thing or not, right? Okay, so that's a lot of information, right? And of course, you can see, when things are resolving and stuff like that. And on the left, what we have here is, different filters, right? If I select, and then you will see this right checkbox, and then there is a cross, right? So if I click on the checkbox, I will see only those things. And if I click on it again, it takes it off, right? If I choose this X icon here, right, it removes it from the interface. So this is a way for me to basically slice and dice the different data, right? So I'm going to reset everything on this particular asset just by clicking here. I'm going to refresh everything so that we see everything about this particular known bad domain name here, right? Which is facelook.no. So if I wanted to know if this particular site is hosting a bad infrastructure, how do we identify them, right? So since we are crawling the internet and then we have a map of what's coming in and going out of the sites, we can show you some sort of relationships, right? And this can be seen using this tab over here called Hostpaths, right? So RiskIQ has over 16,000 different types of causes, right? These causes, you can see it here in the left in the filter section, right? So this particular bad domain infrastructure, right, it is talking to all these different domains here, which are the parent host names. So, and if I wanted to see how they are interconnected, we need to understand the different causes, right? So imagine you have a site. When you load it, maybe it is loading an image from S3 bucket, or sometimes it is loading a script from your CDN network, right? Stuff like this. So we can see all these relationships, and then we can tell you that from where when you are loading this particular known bad infrastructure on your site, from where all things it is connected, right? How these things are connected. So if I apply a filter here, right? So if I put this check marks on the scripts, what we will see is a parent-child relationship. So the child sites here are taking or loading things from the parent site. So in this example, all these parent sites, right, are reaching out to this malicious domain. You can see this, right? And loading malicious script, right? So if you buy stuff from supposedly 60minutesmobile.com, so we are not 100% here that this is a malicious thing, right, as of now, but I have a high suspicious on this domain name when I'm purchasing a product or certain things from this particular domain, right? I'm definitely not going to browse to it, of course, because because there could be malicious stuff there. If we go back in time and see, if there are anything bad stuff out there, like, how do we know that, this 60minutesmobile.com, is not hosting anything malicious, right? So you can click on this, or you can again right click and then open it in the new tab. That's what I've done it here. And then we can see that it is resolving on every single day. And there is this tab called web components, right? So in the web components, what we can see is, this particular site is using an e-commerce platform, which is Magento. And the most interesting thing is it is using Magento version 1.9, which is vulnerable to Magecart attacks, right? Because there is an exploit out there. we can see when this was first brought into when this was first exposed to the internet, right? So on the 11th of December, around like 5:50 in the morning, this was first exposed to the internet, and then this is the last time when this was seen, right? So this is 27th of January 2021 is the time when this was exposed to the internet, right? So uh, that's how you can confirm that these are the web components we have related to a particular attack vectors, right? So okay, so now that you know that how to find malicious domain names, and then how you can see and apply filters to see if they are any running scripts from the malicious domain, and then again to see how things are related with the Magento sites, you can come here and then see the web components as well, right? So uh, let me jump back to the slides and ask you a couple of questions here, right? What we need to know is, like, how many sites, e-commerce sites, are exposed to the internet, which is utilizing Magento as the e-commerce platform, right? How can you find out which websites on the internet are running this vulnerable versions of Magento? Um, uh, can you quickly identify all the sites running version 1 of the Magento? So you need to think about all these things when it comes to doing an active or proactive threat hunting, right? Because all these things are super important to see how these different domain names are being utilized by an attacker when it comes to exfiltrating the data, right? So uh, because once we publish all these different types of infrastructure, right, what happens is attackers put their domains into a sinkhole, right? They stop using this kind of malicious domains, and then they rotate their infrastructure, right? So um, uh, eh, so on June 2020, Magento publicly mentioned on their site that they are no longer supporting version 1 of the Magento, right? And then you can see that, right? Adobe gave everyone a lot of advices, and then they gave a lot of warnings before they did the end of support or end of life for the Magento version 1. So to answer all of these questions, right, and see how big of a problem this is, right, let's go back to our platform and see if we can identify this malicious stuff, right? So maybe what we can do is maybe one of my team member can share all these links to you in the chat section, and then you can actually click on these things along with me to see to find out all the different Magento versions which are currently exposed to the internet on different domains and stuff like that, right? So let's do some hunting on what all domains and subdomains and IP addresses are running an older version or legacy version of this Magento, right? So I'm going to go back to our platform, right? And then find the right. Okay. So what I already did this before I started this threat hunting workshop, right? But if you would like to do this on your own, how you can do this is basically you can go to our PT Classic version of RiskIQ, and then in here, what you can do is you can go to from this, you can click on this triangle icon, it's going to open this drop down menu, and then you can click on component, and when you and then search for Magento, right? And then when you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to pull the data from data sets from our databases, and it's going to show you exactly the information about like how many IP addresses are currently running Magento, right, as their as an e-commerce platform, right? So when we ran this query, we found 442,000 different domains running on the internet with Magento as the as the e-commerce platform. There are 751,000 IP addresses, which is having that as a web component in their server responses or in the banner information, right? That's how we have collected these values, right? So now you see, right, like this is just the I'm talking about Magento, right? But if you would like to drill down into the older versions of Magento and see how many websites are exposed to the internet, right? So in this example, so what you can do is you can pivot from this older versions of Magento by clicking on this. What I've done is I've already done those. I've already identified all the legacy version of Magento, which are 1.x. And then I've already run the query and pivoted from those older versions, right? So you can see that there are 146,000 different domains exposed to the internet running version 0.74. 1,000 websites running version 1, 3,000 IP addresses running version 1, version 1.4.0. 1,000 hosts, 2,000 IP addresses, right? 10,000 IP addresses running version 1.6. 7,000 IP addresses running version 1.8. 34,000 IP addresses running version 1.9. 17,000 hosts, right? And then you can actually drill down into a specific version number as well. Like in this example, I'm showing you version 1.9.1. There are 133 hosts exposed to the internet running this particular version of Magento. 245 IP addresses. 1.9.1.1. There are 50 hosts, and then so on and so forth, right? So 1.9.4. 289 IP addresses, 94 hosts, right? So so all this organization are running an older version of Magento, right? And this is a bad practice, right? So we looked at in our screen, like in our presentation, that Magento version 1.x is obsolete from June 2020, right? And however, we can still see that I'm just going to choose a random domain name here, right? And then see, I'm going to pivot it from this domain name and see when the Magento 1.9.1 version was released on this particular site, right? So this site is live. It is resolving to multiple IP addresses, right? And then if we go to component section here, we can verify what version of Magento it is using. So we can see that it is using Magento version 1.9.4.4. Yeah. So and this could be a potential target for an attacker, right? And that you can see this kind of stuff from the host pairs, right? So if we go to host pairs, you can see if it is pulling any malicious stuff from the known bad domain names, right? So that's how you can identify different versions, and that how quickly you can do the mass scan on the internet, to identify malicious stuff exposed to the internet, or maybe a legacy version of certain infrastructure exposed to the internet, right? So now you see the power of doing the mass scrolls and then applying data science and machine learning to it, and then bringing you this view to you, right? So hopefully everyone got those links, and then they were able to browse to this different legacy versions of sites, right? Using passive total. So let's go back to our slides here to deep dive into and see how how we can actually see how we can take advantage of this bad infrastructure to do some live threat hunting, right? Like or analysis. So we have a project, right? And then this is a community project we have open for everyone to look at in the passive total. I'm going to show you where this project is. I don't think we have shared the link for this project, but yeah, one of my team member can share the link to this project so that you can have a look at all this different artifacts related to Magecart Group 12, right? So let's go to a passive total again, and then so this is the projects, right? So if we have multiple projects released to general public in our community version of passive total. So you can have a look at all these artifacts, and you can enable monitoring on this artifact. So supposingly if things changes, right, you will receive an alerts like this, right? And then you can go through those alerts to see what all things have changed on this bad infrastructure, right? And then of course there are some tags as well, which tells you a story, right? What all things are happening on this particular bad infrastructure. If it's a skimmer, if there is a skimmer, or there is a Magecart script running and stuff like that. So I'm going to choose a random domain name here, which is this statgroup.com, right? I've already opened this one in here.
Hey,
And
Varap,
yep.
sorry to interrupt real quick. I dropped that link that you were showing into chat for everyone. So everyone that's following along can grab that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barrett. So yeah, I mean, if everyone can go to that project and then right click on this particular domain name here, which is stat-group.com, what you are going to see is this is not resolving at the moment, right? However, this can potentially do a lot of damage to a lot of people out there, right? And then if we go to Hostpaths, right, we can see that there are these parent host names, right, which is pulling different scripts, right, which is pulling script from stat-group.com, right? And then this is the first time we have seen this particular script getting pulled from this parent domain, and this is the last time we have seen, right? But you may be wondering, well, this is not live, so it's not going to make any troubles for me, right? But then if we go and then do some deeper analysis, right? Let's go to that particular domain name, which is this one, tonerinc.xyz. Then you will see that this particular domain name is still live and it is resolving daily, right? And if we look at the host pair there, it is pulling stuff from statgroup.com, right? That's what the relationship is showing, right? So what I've done is I copied this particular link, and then I went to urlscan.io, and then I put and I scanned that particular domain to see if it is loading a malicious script, right? From the known bad domain name, which is state-group.com, right? You can do this on your own, and then go to this link, and then you will see that you'll find this URL scan.io results, right? But then when you're looking at this results, right, you might be thinking that, hey, this is not resolving, so it's not an issue for me, right? But then if you look at this URL scan.io results, right, I'm just going to press Command F on my machine, and then I'm going to look for stat dash group, and there it is, right? So what it is doing is, so while loading this particular site, it is pulling this JavaScript from the known malicious domain, right? That's what we can see it here, right? And however, it is 0 KB right now. But then if you go out and then see the failed request, you will see that it was trying to pull this particular domain name, and it is failing the request there, right? Same thing on the hits-cache.com, where it is trying to pull the JavaScript file. Sorry, just give me a second. Right. So you might be wondering, like, well, this is not going to be an issue for me. But think about it again, right? Because this malicious domain, it's not resolving to anything, right? However, if you go and look, if you do some investigation on the whois records, right, you'll see that this particular domain name, this was available from 2014, right? And then back in 2014, 2012, this thing was resolving, right, until the 2016, late 2016, right? And then if you think about it, like, and then it was down for 1 year. Maybe this was blacklisted, right, this domain name, or maybe someone sinkholed this one, right? And then you can identify those kind of information through the whois records, right? This one is not sinkholed at the moment, but I have an example where you can see from the whois record that the bad bad infrastructure gets sinkholed all the time by various security researchers, right? So and then when this domain name expires, right, it comes back in the market again. And then what these bad attackers do is, like, they keep an eye on this kind of domain names, and then they will buy the bad infrastructure, right? And then when they buy the bad infrastructure, that's what is happened here, right? So you see that this was down for so long, and maybe this is expired, maybe the blacklisted has expired here, right? And now it's back in the market again, and then the attack has brought this domain name again, right? And they were quiet for some time, and then again they put the malicious script here in the early January 2020, right? Right before the Christmas time. So that they can target all these different e-commerce sites when people are buying stuff online, right? So that's an interesting scenario, right? And then that's how you can look at all and do the threat investigation when you wanted to see if a particular domain name, a good infrastructure, is loading something bad, right? We have all these things automated. We have infrastructure like this in some other portals. Those things are not with Passive Total, but some of our other products generate this kind of events on its own and notifies our customer that, hey, something has changed on a particular JavaScript file, right? Is this a legit change? Is this if it's not, then someone needs to do some sort of an investigation here. So let me go back to my slides here, right? So we have already covered this, right? So this is the known bad infrastructure, right? Which is talking to different parent domain names. That's what we saw. And again, we saw this tonerring.xyz. It is still pulling this malicious JavaScript file from the domain which is not resolving, right? Because think about this, right? Your browser is not going to care, right? Because when loading the good site, right, your browser is not going to care whether that particular JavaScript is available or not, right? So if you are going to and then we of course did the analysis through URL scan, right? So one thing we need to answer here is, why would someone buy an expired malicious domain, right? And some of my colleagues in the US, they have purchased this expired malicious domain to see, you know, how things are going, right? So, you know, you can actually make a lot of money by buying this expired malicious domain names. And you might be wondering, how can I make money, right? But think about this, right? So when we checked all this, you know, old versions of Magento, right? There are so many sites out there which are using legacy version of Magento. An attacker can create a botnet by exploiting these systems, right? And then they can actually call out to various JavaScript files, and these JavaScript files can then, you know, these JavaScript files can do malicious stuff, right? You can have your own botnet, you know, and you don't even need to do anything, right? So various threat actors are going to exploit the systems, and since it is running the legacy version of Magento, you know, and then they've been exploited previously, and then they have not cleaned those things, right? Because they might be lazy, or they might be thinking that, oh, this particular domain is no longer resolving. But think about it, like once those things are going to get expired, attackers are going to buy those domains again, and then they are going to do malicious stuff, right? Because your legit infrastructure is going to make that query to those domains, and then, you know, they can pull those malicious JavaScript files again, right? So I can you know, do retweets, I can you know, spread fake news, or maybe if I wanted to, you know, do a browser hooking, I can get access to someone's machine, or I can do a attack such as, you know, man in the browser attacks, right? Right. So it is extremely important that the organization pays attention to their JavaScripts, and then they do they take proactive steps to clean this kind of stuff, right? Because you clearly saw, like you know, even if the things are going to go down, right, like it's going to come back again, and then attackers are always taking advantage of you know, these expired domains, and then buying them and to do malicious things, right? And here I've got like some blogs, and then some other domain names where you can do your own research and see, you know, if we are going to see the similar behaviors, right? Um, so let me open those things in the passive total, right? So here's the other bad infrastructure that we are aware of, that, you know, hosting malicious stuff, and it is still resolving today, right? So, and if we go back to Hostpaths, right, we can see that, you know, this particular website called gumballs.net, it is still talking to it is pulling scripts, right? I've selected this to filter the results here, and you can see that this gumballs.net, it is pulling stuff from cdnanalytics.net, right? Here the attackers are very clever, right? They have purchased the domain names which looks very common, right? We see CDN analytics and then stuff like this all the time, right? When we are hosting JavaScripts, right? So when we look at the gumballs.net, right, and if someone is purchasing stuff from this particular site, right, they might be potentially vulnerable to, you know, credential harvesting, or maybe someone or you know, someone is scheming for credit card information, and they are pulling all those information, right? You can you know, you can you know, look for more evidence if it's vulnerable, right, by looking at the host pairs, and then verifying the components section, and then verifying the Magento version, right? So this is running Magento version 1.7. So they were running Magento version 7, and they might have upgraded to Magento version 1.9, right? And then if we go to Hostpaths to see, if it is actually connected to cdnanalytics.net, you can find the relationship here, right? By clicking on the causes, and then you can apply the filter on scripts, and then you can see that clearly as of 26th of January, it is still pulling stuff from cdnanalytics.net, right? And that's what. And the other thing I've done here is I've loaded that particular site inside urlscan.io, and then when I'm looking at the HTTP request, and then especially looking at the scripts, right? I can verify that if there are any CDN analytics related stuff here, right? So yeah, I can see that it is pulling ga.js file, and then what you can do is you can click on show responses. This is no longer active, and that's why it is showing you that. But yeah, but then you can see the responses here, right? Coming from the CDN Analytics .NET site, and then you can also see that what all things are coming in here, right? Same thing for another domain. This is another malicious domain name, marketstates.com. You can see that it is talking. We have marked it as malicious. Again, it is talking to some. It is pulling stuff from stuff like ordersecurity.com. This is another malicious domain, right? There are live sites out there which is pulling stuff from this known bad infrastructure, right? And then if you verify through URL scan, you are going to see that the requests are getting failed, right? But I think one of these is actually one of these domain names actually got sinkholed in 2018, right? Let me show you if I can find that information, right? But yeah, that's interesting to see, right? Sinkhole domains coming back online again, and then attacker purchasing it, and then spreading the malicious JavaScript files. Let me see if I can find it. It's one of these, right? But I don't remember which one it is as of now. It's not on top of my head right now. Maybe it's this. Yeah. Oh yeah, this one. So if you see this, right, in 2018, this was sinkholed, right? So and that's what it is showing you in the name server section here. So some researchers they have sinkholed this one, and then in 2018, in September 2018, and if you look at the heat map here, we can confirm that it was down in September 2018, and then as soon as the sinkhole expired, it was back in the market, and then malicious attackers, they purchased the domain and then hosted it using different name servers, right? And that's this is the time when they purchased it, and then they were quiet for a while, and again they came back online in the early 2019, right? So so now this proves that even if it's a known malicious bad infrastructure, and then even if it's down, it doesn't mean that you are secure. You need to take proactive steps and then do hunting, and then stop bad attackers from taking advantage of this kind of stuff. And that's exactly when the data breach happens. That's when the most of the cybersecurity related incident happens, because this is so widespread. And people are still using legacy versions of Magento, even if it's end of life. It's a pure laziness, I would say, to not clear all this JavaScripts from your websites. So definitely reach out to us if you would like to do more research in this area, or if you would like to see if your organization is vulnerable to this type of attack, right? The other thing I wanted to show you, the last thing I wanted to show you here is this particular site, right? Like this is a good infrastructure, right? But it is running on an old version of Magento, right? It is running on 0.7.5, really old version, right? People are buying like surfboards and whatnot through this website. And if you look at the Hostpaths here, right? So this is a different group. This is not group 12, but this is a different group taking advantage of the injecting malicious JavaScripts, right? And if you look at this, right, this is a typos quoted domain here, cdnn-aws.com, right? So you can see that, early 2020, February 1st of February 2020, they started pulling stuff, malicious JavaScript from cdnn-aws.com, and it is still there, right? People are not cleaning this kind of stuff, right? And then if we load this in urlscan.io, any guesses from the audience on what they can see? CDNN, right? Any guesses? What they can see? Type it in. Type in the chat section, right? Right. Of course, it's a Magecart script, right? Where they are doing some, they're injecting scripts like this, right? This is like encoded somehow. This is the loader script, init.js. That's the loader script, and then it is calling different stages of the attack, right? So that's what I wanted to show you here, and that's the actual site, right? And then yeah, of course, you can use stuff like any.run to see the behavior when loading a particular JavaScript file into different browsers. When you are opening those JavaScript, is it calling something else? Maybe yes. Is there any back and forth communication to the bad known infrastructure? You can take advantage. You can see all those things, right? Of course, then you can keep an eye on those things locally on your machine as well. So yeah, stuff like this is really helpful when you wanted to do the threat hunting, and hopefully you have learned something new. We have written a blog about this, where we have covered a lot more detail about how an old Magecart domains are being bought up by different threat actors for monetization purposes. So yeah, here's the link. You can read through about it. And again, I think I covered this already. This was the sinkhole domain name, and then it's coming back online again, right? And then this is the different infrastructure, how you can hunt for sinkhole or expired domains, and then if you can purchase them, before the bad guy go for it, then it's going to be great for the community. Yep. So I think I've covered all these things. Yep. I think that's what I had for this threat hunting workshop. If you've got any questions or concerns, feedback, or you would like to see something else in the platform, let me know. Now is the time, right? So I think we've got 10 more minutes. So I'm open to take questions if you have any.
Hey, Varel, we had a question about infrastructure. And can you have alerts if the attacker rotates their infrastructure?
Yes, I think I covered this in my workshop, but yeah, of course. So when you go to, let me find the screen here, sorry. Yep. So if you go to projects, right, you can see that we have this monitoring. You can turn on those monitorings for a particular artifact, whether it's a domain name, and then you can come here and add artifacts. We have different types of artifacts. You can do monitoring on your domain name, IP addresses. However, there are other things as well, right, where you can keep an eye on Bitcoin wallet, NetBlocks, PDNS, Whois, etc. That's one way of keeping an eye on the when the infrastructure changes. The other thing you can do is this as well. Here's the legend, right? So you can rely on this little triangle on the squares, and that's when things have changed, right? So if you look at this, right, on this particular day, it was resolving to 3 different IP addresses. Those ones ends with 38, 120, 126, right? But if you go here, you'll see that things have changed, right? Now there is a new IP address called which ends with 53.93. So that's how you can keep an eye, and then that's how you can receive alerts, right? Here's the alert section where you'll see all the alerts. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks. We had another question about sources and how the sources work in the account settings.
Oh, I see. So we have different types of sources, and you can find that information in account. If you go to account settings, and then if you go to the sources, right? Here you will find stuff from where we are pulling information, right? So we get feeds from like Kaspersky, VirusTotal, Hybrid Analysis, and to name a few, right? And then on top of this, we are doing our own crawling and collecting data. So that's what the sources are about.
Got it. Thanks.
Are there any?
Yeah, one more I think we can squeeze in here. What
Sure.
does SYN slash ACK handshake only mean in some of the response results that you
Oh, yeah, that's a very technical question. I'm glad people ask that question. So basically, if you go to if you supposingly go to a particular IP address, right? So I'm going to go to resolutions tab here, and then let's jump to this random IP in New Zealand. Yep. You'll see a service tab, right, with any IP address asset, right, or query. So when you go to that service tab, you'll see a different banner information. What all ports are open on that particular IP address, and then again you have got different filters here, right, based on and then we give you some information about like what ports are doing what. So if you want to look at all the ports related to remote accesses, you can click on that, and then you'll see the responses, and then these responses are basically banner information we have collected, right? But on some of these ports, right, what you can see is like there'll be SYNAC, right, kind of stuff in the server responses. Basically, when we do the port scans, right, how it works is basically, when you make a TCP connection to something, there are usually 3 phases, right? It's like a 3-way handshake. First, you send hey, I wanted to connect to this. Can you acknowledge me about can I connect to this? And then when you have an active connection, the target would send you a SYNAC response, right? And that's what it is like when it comes to open port scanning. Yep.
got it. Thanks.
Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, those are the things, right? So that's what I was looking for. SYNAC handshake. Yep. Yep. Are there any other questions or concerns?
No, I think you've answered everything else, and Kevin and Hans have answered all the other questions that came up in the chat window here. So with
Awesome.
that, we can call it a wrap for the day. We thank you all for attending. If you have any questions like you see on the slide here, you can reach out to success@riskiq.net anytime. Thank you all again for attending. Thank you, Viral, for a great workshop, and everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, team. It was good. Thank you. Bye.